Hi everyone, I'm Barbara from the Nazareth Ceramic Center in Nazareth, Pennsylvania, and I've got an opportunity today to show you what I do to carve or customize a piece of ceramic. This morning I took a large pumpkin out of the mold. It's a large pumpkin here. It's 2 pieces, has a lid. But the pumpkin has a very large pouring gate, and the pouring gate is at the top of the mold, and it allows you to pour the slip in. When you drain this mold after pouring it, you end up having the slip line that pouring gate, and it's a perfect circle. I always hate to throw this stuff away. I mean, it is scrap, and technically there's no waste because I can put it into our scrap bin and turn it once again into back into slip, and it could be poured into something else. It's called reclaim. But I wanted to take the opportunity and use this product to make a project that someone can paint or that I can paint and then sell at a vendor show. In this case, this circle, which can be technically comes out of the mold like this. This is the top. This is the bottom, right next to where the pumpkin is. I belong to an organization, fraternal and philanthropic organization called the Order of the Amaranth, and one of their symbols is a crown. Their presiding officer wears this crown, and I actually do Pennsylvania's Grand Court, and so there's an opportunity to sell this product as a remembrance of a presiding officer's year. So instead of wasting this, I'm actually going to take it and file down these edges while it is still leather hard. So let's talk a little bit about this. It is very fragile in this state. This is called leather hard. It's been out of the mold now for about 3 hours. It is very fragile at this point. It's actually more fragile than when I first took it out of the mold because it has started to harden, but it is not bone dry. So I'm going to carve it, and the tools that I'm going to need today are a turntable. This is an old Lazy Susan, well worn. Going to let me make smooth, even curves. I also have a piece of styrofoam. This is to raise it up, makes it a little bit easier for you to see, and this is what I'm used to working on. I have a bunch of solo shot cups, and they're going to help me make even width cuts. I'll show you that in a few minutes. I have a scalpel. This is the flat-sided scalpel. Well worn, not new. I have a fairly large round paintbrush. I think this is probably about a 6 or an 8. I have 2 hole punches with varying size holes that I'm going to use to poke some circles in. And I also have a container of just plain water. The water's a little bit dirty at this point because we used it for opening molds. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to even off the edge of this piece. It's not very even, as you can see, all the way around. It's got bumps and lumps, but being in the leather hard stage, we can still even that off. So I want to have something that I can easily and consistently use to cut off. So I want to cut it off somewhere at about here. So I'm going to unstack these cups until I get something that I can use for a guide. Okay, I'm liking that pretty well. So I'm going to rest my hand on these cups, and I'm going to start to score a line. You want to make sure that the crown or the piece of ceramic at this point is steady in an even place. I've got a fair amount of pressure on my right hand as I go around. I put my reading glasses on. Okay. Now that I've got this score line, which I'm not exactly sure is where I need it to be. That's a little better. Okay. So I'm going to cut this off. It is fairly important that you are consistent with the line. You're going to notice that I'm going to shut up for some long spans of distances. And when I'm doing that, the editing software is going to be able to go in a little faster. This is a fairly slow process. I am going really, really slow here. I do this one first. I want a nice, even flow to this line. And at some point, when I get around, it's going to pop off just like that. Okay, so now I've got this piece left over. I probably could make a single band crown if I wanted to. I don't think it's that important. I'm going to just put that in the scrap bucket and make more slip out of it. I'm going to take the back side, the non-sharp side of my scalpel, and I'm going to run it around the inside here and kind of smooth out any of the flash, any of the marks that I had. I want to do this shortly after I carve. I think I get a better line that way. Got a little ridge here I'm going to smooth out. I like the back side of the blade. By the way, you may not realize it, but I am doing this at our pouring table in our basement pouring room. So when you see me throw things in front of me, there's actually a trough, which is a place for me to throw scrap that we clean out before we do our pouring. So I'm just making sure that that's a nice smooth edge. I'm going to carefully pick this up, get rid of my scraps, turn it over, and because I know that the Lazy Susan is pretty smooth, we're going to see how well I did. I don't see any... I see a few, but not too bad for ridges or blank spaces. So now that I've got actually the bottom of the crown done, I want to go ahead and I want to do the top. So I want to scrape off that, line up where I think I can go. Can I go a little higher than that? Put another one on. Let's see if I can do that. So again, I've got a secure, stable space for me that is not going to move. I'm going to put my scalpel on, hold it down with one hand firmly, and I'm going to carefully turn with this other hand, holding the scalpel steady, and I'm making some score lines. I'm going to go all the way around until it meets. Okay, it meets. I'm done with the shot glasses, at least for right now. Now I'm going to cut off, just like I did the other side, I'm going to cut off this score line. Going around really careful. I don't want to go too fast. I want to make sure that my blade is all the way through. You can see there's a blade there. I'll go all the way through. I am actually turning the project. I am not turning the scalpel so much. Keep my hand nice and steady, and then it's going to pop off. So now I got another scrap ring. Take the back side again, back side, non-sharp side. I'm going to scrape off, even out this edge. Kind of boring for you to watch. Do the outside. You can also do this part of the cleaning area at the end when it's bone dry, which you will see later on in this video. or you can do it now. I tend to do a little bit of both. Get all the fine part out. Make sure that it's smooth as I want it. Nice and smooth, nice and level, or level as I can get it. This is art. Get rid of my scraps. Okay, so now I got a crown, or a short circle, depending upon how you look at it. So I don't know if you can see, but on the inside there are some ridges. These are actually drips from when the mold was dumped and drained. It is hard not to get these drips, but I would really like to get rid of part of them now. So as you can see, I have laid the crown down on its side, and I am doing a scraping motion inside with the sharp part of my scalpel blade. And I want to try and get rid of this now. I had done a crown like this late last week when we had poured this mold, this pumpkin mold before, and was actually had points on it. It had dried to bone dry, but I had not taken these drips out. And today I was cleaning the points, getting ready to fire it to bisque. And when I was cutting off some of these drip marks, a piece shattered in my hands. And that's the way it goes with bone dry ceramics sometimes. They are very fragile and delicate. And even if you've been doing this for a lot of years, which I've been doing this for about almost 6 years now, you still have a big failure rate sometimes. So there is a divot in here. And I'm going to fill that in a little later on, and we'll talk about that. But for right now, I'm just going to ignore it. Center it back on the wheel and think about what I'm going to do. So a lot of times I'm a fairly geometric person, so I like even numbers. So I'm going to mark the crown at the halfway mark. I'm going to turn it 90 degrees, and I'm going to mark it again. That's going to give me 4 sections. I'm going to turn it again, and I'm going to turn this from 4 sections into 8 sections. And that's not really 8 sections, not 8 even sections. Probably, that's a little closer. So at this point, this is still very soft. And that mistake that I made, I'm actually just going to take the paintbrush, wet paintbrush, dipped it in the water, got it wet, and I'm running this over the top. And that is, in essence, erasing what I think is a mistake. So now let's go back, and I'm going to do this by eye because I think my eye is actually more realistic. I am making even marks at the halfway point between my original marks. Sorry, I can't talk and calculate at the same time. So now I'm not sure if you can see, but there are 8 marks here. And I'm going to use those to try and carve out some points or prongs in between. Now, I don't know how much I think I'm going to do. I think I'm going to take this hole puncher and I'm going to punch down in between these marks. You have to remember that this is art. So these brass punches are great. We use them for poking a lot of our Christmas trees. This is actually the one that we use for the medium twist pegs. I'm actually just carefully going. See if I can do this. I am going in between, and I'm going in with the point first. Let me make sure that I get in the same mark that I was in before. And I'm just going in very slowly and carefully, and I'm twisting as I'm going. And when it comes back out, that clay plug is still in there. Fling it out because I don't want to deal with it. I'm going on to the next one. So I find halfway between my two marks. I'm about halfway down where I want to go. I want it just below that top ridge. I'm turning the tool as I'm putting it in, drawing it back out, flinging the plug out. I'm actually going to do this faster from my side. I'm going to do it on all the marks, in between each of the marks. That plug fell out by itself. Okay, do I have 8 holes? I have 8 holes. Okay. Now I'm going to take this same tool and I'm going to go to the other end, to the larger end, and I want to go to the mark. And I want to be right on that edge. I'm going to be very careful going around because I'm on the edge. I'm going to poke it through. So the closer you are to the edge, the more fragile this is going to be. That one I didn't get quite close enough to the top. Maybe I was better off doing it from your side. I think I was better off doing it from your side. Now I'm just going to clean this up a little bit, and I'm going to try and be even all the way around. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do all on one side. I'm just kind of scraping down. I go halfway between the two holes, and I'm just carving down slowly. Halfway between the two holes and carving down. Halfway between the two holes, carving down. Sometimes you can feel the clay give. You want to make sure that it's not giving too much. Okay, so I did the easy one. Now I got to do the backstroke because I'm right-handed. Halfway between, and I'm carving down. Halfway between, and I'm carving down. Halfway between, and I'm carving down. I'm carving down. So if I turn this around for you, you'll notice that this is not completely even. There is quite a bit of difference between this point, which is really short in width, and something like this point that is really long in width. So you've got this point that's really short and this point that's really long. As far as I'm concerned, this is art, and I'm not going to worry about this too much. I'm also not going to worry about curving this right now. We'll do a bunch more of this when we clean it up after it's bone dry. In my preference, it won't be bone dry for at least 3 to 4 days before I do the next one. And quite often I do the same kind, I do all the same work, usually on a weekly basis. So today is Wednesday. We poured on Monday. We took out on Tuesday some of the stuff. Today we had to take this out because it wasn't ready yesterday. Wednesday I tend to do most of my carving of my bigger pieces. And then Thursday we do other days we do other things. So I'm going to clean up and get rid of some of this scrap. To me it just seems to get in the way. And I'm going to take a smaller punch, my other punch, and I'm going to punch a bunch of holes along the bottom. And what I'm doing is I'm actually holding this punch steady, and I'm going to bring the crown to the punch because I want these all at the same level. So first I'm going to go underneath each hole. Out. This one clogs too. They seem to all clog. Haven't figured out how to get them not to clog yet. If anybody can figure out how to get them so that they don't clog, let me know. I know that it does make a difference about how dry the clay is. So I'm keeping these as even as possible. So I'm resting that tool. Okay, so I did my first 8, and now I'm going to go back through and I'm going to bisect and put 2 more dots in between the holes. So I did, these were the ones that were lined up. Now I'm going to put 2 more in each section. So that's going to be 24 holes. This particular organization that is I'm going to sell this crown in, has some interesting virtues that are based on numerology and the definitions of 4, the number 4. So the fact that that all of these decorations that I'm putting in are divisible by 4 will be interesting to this particular group. Almost done. Okay, so let's look at this a little bit closer. So we've got the holes at the top, and then we've got all these holes at the bottom. I poked holes here in the valleys, and I have since cut them out. I'm just going to go around and I'm just going to like scrape off any of this flashing that's here. Extra clay and slip. It doesn't need to dry there. There is a little dot here. I'm just going to pick that off carefully. Okay, I did it on the outside. I'm going to do it very carefully on the inside. I'm actually going to set this down. I'm afraid that my hands are going to possibly crush this. They're going to put too much pressure in the wrong spot, and this will collapse or dissolve. Okay, so I've got one section here. I don't know if you can see it. Right there where I'm tapping my finger. And I've cut away too much, and it's going to be a very fragile spot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my paintbrush and I'm going to wet it. And then I'm going to take one of these dots that cleaned out, that I poked out, and I'm going to drop it into my cleaning water here. And I'm going to wait for it to get soft, and it shouldn't take too long. Okay. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to stick it in that area. And I'm going to kind of smooth it down. But I want to make sure that I can still get to this punch in that hole. So I'm going to put the punch back through and make sure that it's going round and around and around, which it is. And I have now filled in that hole. So you can see where I filled in that hole a little bit. I'm going to brush that off. Got some other gunk going on here. I'm going to clean that up a little bit. And the hole is a little smaller. It's filled with a little film, which I just blew out. I'm going to take this paintbrush. I'm going to clean down some of these holes. This will make it so that after it's bone dry, I am less likely to have to clean very detailed with this. These holes will already be smooth and have not sharp edges. And the less I have to do with this once it's bone dry, the better off I am. It will be not quite as fragile, but I don't know. I would rather do this now than do it later. I'm basically just taking the paintbrush and I'm poking it in there and softening those edges. The reality is I'm filling them with a little film of water, like the edge of a bubble. I'm okay with that. At some point, the edge of that bubble is going to dry and the bubble is going to pop and you will still have the hole. Okay, I've been all the way around for the lower holes at the bottom. I'm going to carefully turn this around and I'm going to do the larger holes that are at the top. I think I'm going to set this down. Do the larger holes at the top because these are a little larger, I can actually get my paintbrush in there and do a circular sweeping motion that's really softening those edges and smoothing them down. And now I think I'm going to do the same thing up here. I probably will do more sanding once this is bone dry. Just because it will be easier and smoother to do it. Now I'm taking the paintbrush and I'm going around the outside, making sure that it's smooth and that there isn't something that I want to smooth out or fix. So right here, I'm not sure that you can see it. Ooh, right there, there's a little mark. And the crown is really, really soft now. If I wanted to, I could take this round and make it an oval. I don't think I'm going to do that. But it's very, very soft right now. So I want to be extra careful about how I handle it and whether I need to fill in or how much water that I'm putting on this. Okay. I'm afraid if I keep going too much longer, this thing is going to get really, really soft. I'm going to transfer it back to my styrofoam. Make sure that it's positioned the way that I want it. And that's as far as I'm going to go today. So thank you very much for joining me. If you are watching this as a Facebook video tonight, know that this video is not complete. There will be more sections shortly, probably next week when it's bone dry. Thank you. Bye-bye.